Kamala Harris is back from her Hawaiian post-election exile, trying to explain to donors how she burned through $1.5 billion and still got steamrolled by Donald Trump.
The light of America's promise will burn bright as long as we never give up and we keep fighting.
Drunk. Yes, it does. And while Kamala tells her party to keep fighting, it seems all the Democrats do is fight with each other. James Carville is smacking another double dose of common sense into her woke staffers who cried racism and kept Harris away from doing an interview with Joe Rogan.
The vice president was thinking about going on Joe Rogan's show, and a lot of the younger progressive staffers pitched a hissy fit. If I were running a 2028 campaign and I had some little snot-nosed 23-year-old saying, I'm going to resign if you don't do this, not only would I fire that motherfucker on the spot, I would find out who hired them and fire that person on the spot. These people who had to lose the election because of the stupidity.
But Team Kamala is full of excuses on why the Harris-Rogan interview never happened. Members of her campaign leadership claim they wanted her to go on the popular podcast, but it's all Donald Trump's fault.
We wanted to do it. We tried to get a date to make it work, and ultimately we just weren't able to find a date. We did go to Houston. And she gave a great speech at an amazing event. We were hoping to be able to fit it in around that. And ultimately weren't able to do it. As it turns out, that was the day that Trump was taping his Joe Rogan. Which they had never confirmed to us. We kind of figured that out in the lead up to it.
We offered to do it in Austin. People should know that. Didn't work out. Mm-hmm. I think, maybe they leveraged that to get Trump in studio. I don't know.
Jesse, it's very interesting that now these young progressives are denying the fact that was reported that they were the ones who didn't want her to do Joe Rogan, which certainly made sense to me. But the fact that she appears to have followed that decision, irrespective of their trying to get out of admitting that, doesn't that tell you that she herself was a progressive, that really was who she was?
Yeah, she listened to 23-year-olds. That's the lesson. You never listen to a 23-year-old. Now, I respect authority. I respect people that have had success, financial success. I respect my elders. And I respect people in a corporate setting that are the boss. Now, liberalism teaches you there is no hierarchy. We have to tear down the hierarchy. They think that any 23-year-old's opinion is just as justified as some 50-year-old or the candidate themselves. So if you're some snot-nosed brat and you're pointing at a 50-year-old with $1 million in the bank and a history of winning campaigns, and you're saying, you're going to do this and you're going to do that, that's not only the fault of the 23-year-old that doesn't know where the hell they are, but that's the fault of the 50-year-old for listening to the snot-nosed 23-year-old brat. So there's a lot of blame to go around.
Dana, these snot-nosed, is that what you call them? These brats, I mean, 2/3 of the DNC staff is laid off from her campaign. And they're complaining because they said they didn't get severance and, they wanted some additional financing. They got little notice. I've been in 5 campaigns. One was statewide. Everybody knows if your candidate doesn't win, you're transient. You're on to the next campaign. Why do they think they're special?
As all things Democrat, they overpromised, and then they couldn't pay the bills. They told them that they were going to get paid until whatever the end of the year, and that didn't work out. So, of course, they're mad. It's just like when Biden promised 100 times that he was going to forgive all of their student loans, and it didn't work because it's not constitutional. I think that this is hysterical. They think that one Joe Rogan interview would have saved her. The race is not that complicated. Biden was super unpopular. He stayed in too long. She is connected to Biden. The people hated the stuff that Biden had done, and President Trump is a political phenomenon. And he had a good track record. So they could maybe get themselves to understand the first 2 points I made. They will never accept that Trump outworked them and had a better message. Now, David Plouffe, he also said that they need to dominate the middle. Well, that's very interesting because the Democrats' institutional advantages are huge. Think of how many small donors they had. Think of the dark money they had through Arabella Advisors. Think of the get out the vote efforts. How many times did we hear Jessica tell us that they had knocked on 2,000 doors in a day? Yep. Who cares? If your message and your policies are terrible, you're going to lose. And so I think they could be in the wilderness for quite a long time. If they think that one Joe Rogan interview was going to save them, and that's what they want to argue about amongst themselves, they've got problems.
You know, Harold, part of the overspending has to do with the fact that they spent $10 million on star-studded events. But if Kamala was a star that they said she was, why did she have to pay other stars to say nice things about her?
Let me be clear. I said this yesterday. The Democrats need to step back and understand we just lost. We got thrashed at the polls. There's no, I agree with you, Dana. One interview was not going to change that. Voters made a very simple calculation, as they do in every presidential race. Who is going to make my neighborhood safer? Who's going to make my home safer? Who's going to make my job more secure? Who's going to make the country more secure in any given order? And we lost on all four fronts. It wasn't the moderate vote. I say to my friend David Plouffe, we lost black voters, Hispanic voters, Asian voters, younger voters. Donald Trump made more inroads with those voters than he did with white voters who didn't have a college degree, which is his strength. But he made up for it with inroads into the base of the Democratic Party. I don't think it'll take longer than 4 years. Technology and things, and the fact that we have governors across the country, you can certainly fill that void. But if we don't take 6 months and travel the country, crisscross it, go to places where Democrats don't go, try to understand school choice, try to understand what it means to stimulate growth and opportunity in pockets of the country that have been overlooked, people that have been overlooked, the middle class that feel like we don't believe in them and don't support them any longer. Understand that Donald Trump has done something unbelievable in politics. He's flipped the whole script. The working class now supports him. I don't think they support Republicans. They support him and people who support him. That's what we have to figure out. And if we're sitting around 3 weeks after the election and still talking about Joe Rogan, whom I like and respect, Joe Rogan's show had very little to do with the fact that she did not distance herself from Joe Biden sooner, and that she didn't have an economic message, that she didn't deal with the border, and that we didn't deal with how we were going to make neighborhoods safer across the country. I contend that's where the focus ought to be. And I got to tell you, I love hearing James Carville talk whenever
We
he
all
wants
do.
to
We
talk.
all do. But, you know, Charlie, in addition to all that, I'll add to it that she didn't seem very smart. And the fact that I'll
That's
throw
the
that
bottom
in.
line.
Yeah. Okay. But in addition to that, John Morgan said, quote, the way she overspent on this campaign, $1.5 billion, literally disqualifies her from running for anything ever again. Imagine how she would be as president.
Yeah, no kidding. Not only is she not very smart, she didn't have a vision for what she wanted her campaign to be. I don't know what the woman believes. But every time she tries to explain it, it sounds like she's probably lying. And she's just saying whatever she has to say to sort of win the election. The reason, and the Joe Rogan thing is interesting, but the Joe Rogan thing was a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself.
Right. Well said.
It's that she knew she couldn't go out there and explain her positions and defend her positions in a way that people would find believable or trust her. And of course, the reason that Donald Trump routed in all of those different categories among voters is because he was talking about common sense issues, with common sense solutions to issues that people cared about. And it didn't matter if you were Asian or black or a woman or whatever it was. It was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's why he won in 2016. And I think it's why he won this time, that he talks about things without getting stuck into ideology. And and by the way, I know a lot of Republicans, they love the fact that Democrats are shooting at one another and are unable to figure out what happened. As a conservative, I actually hope Democrats do figure it out, because we need two sane parties in this country. It does us no good to have one completely insane lunatic party and then a less insane party.
Yeah.
I know you're glad that we're the lunatic party right now.
I am so glad.
There are benefits to that. Up next, the Hollywood Trump haters are melting down again. Alec Baldwin is trashing Americans as uninformed.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.